This conference will now be recorded.
Me da muchísimo gusto que todos estén aquí y bueno, pues queremos empezar dándole las gracias a todos. Los últimos eventos que hubo en México, en el Estadio Corregidora, verdaderamente nos rompen el corazón. Creemos que mejorar el entorno de los estadios tiene muchísimo impacto en todos y sobre todo en los deportes. Y el programa que venimos a ofrecerles el día de hoy, Play to Zero, de Green Sports Alliance, es algo que nos inspira profundamente y que quisiéramos que se replicara en todo México para crear justamente este tipo de entornos. Sabemos que hubo muchas cosas que no tienen que ver con esto, pero sí hemos visto y se ha probado que si existen entornos sustentables, medioambientales, la armonía también es afectada en ese sentido. Así que les damos la bienvenida y quiero presentarles a Rebeca Ortiz, representante del GBCI en México, para presentar este webinar que vamos a tener el día de hoy. Gracias, Rebeca.
Muchas gracias, Alicia. Muy buenos días a todos. Un placer estar de nuevo con ustedes en nuestro segundo episodio de Innovators Play to Zero. Quiero agradecer a Sume, esta directiva, a su staff y a su presidenta por esta colaboración y por la oportunidad de seguir trabajando juntos para traerles temas relevantes que propicien la transformación del mundo de la construcción y el entorno construido en beneficio de México y los mexicanos. A manera de introducción, les quiero platicar que en el otoño del 2021, nuestra empresa ARC, responsable de la plataforma tecnológica ARC, anunció una nueva alianza con la Organización de Intercambio Deportivo Green Sports Alliance y el lanzamiento de la nueva campaña Play to Zero para ayudar a los equipos deportivos, ligas, sedes y conferencias de todo el mundo a reducir sus emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero, trabajar a sus objetivos neto cero y traer una mayor salud y bienestar, resiliencia y sustentabilidad a la industria del deporte. Los socios de Play to Zero incluyen a las ligas mayores de béisbol, la Liga Nacional de Hockey, la Asociación Americana de Básquetbol, la Liga Mayor de Soccer y la Conferencia Nacional Deportiva Universitaria NCAA PAC-12, así como las principales instalaciones deportivas, incluyendo el SoFi Stadium, el Hollywood Park, el Lumen Field, el hogar de los Seattle Seahawks y los Seattle Sounders. Y los participantes de Play to Zero aprovechan la plataforma de desempeño ARC para rastrear y medir su desempeño en sustentabilidad en áreas que incluyen energía, agua, residuos, transporte y experiencia humana. Y hagan el reconocimiento por su alto desempeño en estas categorías, además de dar seguimiento con otras adaptaciones específicas de la industria que reconocen el desempeño y que se están llevando a cabo en este primer año de programación. En este momento que el deporte nacional tiene gran relevancia, y estamos a muy poco tiempo del Mundial de Fútbol 2026, donde Canadá, México y los Estados Unidos van a ser los anfitriones de la Copa Mundial de Fútbol de 2026. Hemos querido presentarles el trabajo de Green Sports Alliance y el avance del programa Play to Zero durante su primer año de existencia y cómo este programa ha sido relevante para las comunidades donde se está llevando a cabo. Los recintos deportivos son algunos de los edificios más emblemáticos de nuestras comunidades y tienen un tremendo potencial para impactos de sustentabilidad, teniendo en cuenta los millones de aficionados que ingresan a estadios y arenas cada año. Al aprovechar la plataforma ARC e integrar prácticas de diseño sustentable, estas ligas e instalaciones deportivas profesionales y colegiadas estarán mejor posicionadas para medir su progreso en convertirse en más sustentables, más saludables y más resilientes. Play to Zero proporciona también a los recintos deportivos un camino hacia la certificación LEED. Hasta ahora, cientos de instalaciones deportivas de todo el mundo han logrado esta certificación y muchos de estos lugares, desde su estreno, ya están utilizando la plataforma de desempeño ARC para certificar hacia LEED. Play to Zero continuará escalando este crecimiento, ayudando a la industria deportiva a adoptar un enfoque de nivel portafolio para la certificación de construcción sustentable a través del uso de ARC. Y para hablarnos de esta alianza, tenemos el privilegio de contar con Scott Jenkins, presidente de la mesa directiva de la Green Sports Alliance. Les queremos pedir, por favor, que utilicen el chat para ir dejando sus preguntas que van a ser contestadas al final de la sesión. También les quiero pedir, por favor, que apaguen sus micrófonos como una medida de protocolo y de respeto a la audiencia. Y ahora les voy a platicar de Scott. Scott Jenkins tiene una amplia experiencia en el desarrollo, apertura y operación de instalaciones deportivas, incluyendo el Mercedes-Benz Stadium en Atlanta, Safeco Field en Seattle, Lincoln Financial Field en Filadelfia y el Miller Park en Milwaukee. Scott es un pionero en el movimiento ambiental en el deporte y cofundador de la Green Sports Alliance, donde ha servido como presidente de la mesa directiva en los últimos 11 años. En 2013 fue honrado con el premio Natural Resources Defense Council Game Changer Award y en el 2012 el NW Energy Coalition Conversation Eagle Award. Es graduado de la Universidad de Wisconsin con una licenciatura en Administración de la Construcción y del programa ejecutivo MBA de la Universidad de Washington. Scott, thank you very much for being with us this morning. We're honored to have you. The stage is yours.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. And I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you all, and especially that you're putting up with my inability to speak Spanish. So thank you very much for allowing me to do this in English. And I want to go through my slide deck fairly quickly because I'd really love to make this more of a conversation than a presentation. So let me share my slides here. All right, are you seeing that?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes,
Thank you.
All right, great. All right, so Rebecca gave a brief introduction of who I am. So I'm the board chair and a co-founder of the Green Sports Alliance. I've been in the board chair position for the last 11 years. We launched the organization 12 years ago in the Seattle area, but we're now firmly entrenched in North America. So I'll get into a little bit more about who the Green Sports Alliance is, but I have about 25 years of experience in managing, building, and operating sports venues in the U.S. My last project was Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta that achieved LEED Platinum certification. And I currently work for a lighting company out of the Seattle area where we do LED lighting, air disinfection, and human-centric lighting. So that's a little bit about who I am. So the Green Sports Alliance, our mission is to leverage the cultural and market influence of sport to promote healthy practices and sustainable communities where we live, work, and play. And we know how powerful sports can be and the potential for it to do very good things. And over the first 10 years of the organization, we really just tried to promote the adoption of more sustainable practices throughout the industry. And we've got a large network of leagues, teams, and venues that have done good work. But we know today, with what's transpired and the kinds of impacts we're seeing, the scientists were right about climate change and what that meant to us, and the risk that it poses us. And we developed this platform in association with the ARC platform, with the US GBCI, to play to zero. And we'll get into a little bit about the platform in a couple slides here. But as I mentioned, we have members throughout all the professional sports leagues and collegiate members and a number of international members. We really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you folks in Mexico, obviously with the World Cup coming up here with North America, with Mexico, US, and Canada. We feel like it's a great opportunity to join forces and to promote sustainability as we get ready to host the World Cup. So as I mentioned, we've been around about 10 years. We've built a movement. It holds a lot of promise, but we know we have a lot of work to do. The good news is the leagues, teams, and venues understand the value and have leaned in to do more work in this area. But we really need to make some major headway in the next 10 years so that we can start to influence a better future. And we're hoping Play to Zero helps usher that in. From a business perspective, obviously our business of sport and all of our well-being, for that matter, any business or any personal interests we might have, are really threatened by climate change. And you only have to look over the past year of the fires, the floods, the drought, the hurricanes, the extreme heat that we're all facing, which are all symptomatic of what climate change means and the risk that it poses us. And some of these scenes are really horrific, almost apocalyptic, when you see the type of heavy rain that falls in places and severe flooding, the extreme heat, even in Vancouver, British Columbia, and in the Pacific Northwest where I live, to have temperatures well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit for several days, it creates some major problems. The forest fires that we've suffered with and the extreme shortage of water in our river systems are really, if that doesn't wake us up, I'm not sure what's going to. And then, of course, there's the IPCC report that says this is a code red for humanity. So there's no way we can ignore this, and everyone is going to be impacted by it. But again, if we use the power of sport to unite, we can put up a good fight and do good things in our community at the same time. So how do we turn a crisis into an opportunity? And having been in operations in sports for the last 25 years, there's lots of places where taking action against climate change is good business. We can reduce our operating costs by reducing our utility bills. We can improve the impression of our brand by being responsible corporate citizens. We can engage our employees and our fans along with us in this fight. We can activate our corporate partners, which really hold a large key to this, because as businesses, sport is great at marketing its brand, and there are a lot of companies that like to align with the sports teams in the venues. And they want to be viewed as good corporate citizens. So we can take advantage of the money they spend to promote the association with the team and help activate environmental initiatives. When we do that, we elevate the conversation, the volume on the conversation about taking action, and we can inspire fans to act, which is really the leverage point that sports holds as a tremendous potential. And we can do it in a way that invests in our communities. So we can do good locally while we're trying to tackle a global problem. So the Play to Zero platform using ARC is really quite simple. I like to think of it in these 4 buckets, if you will. First, it's benchmarking performance. We need to know what we consume for water, for energy, and what we do with our waste streams, how much we create and how much we divert from the landfill. So benchmarking is a really important piece of the puzzle, and obviously ARC is built for that. And it's an international platform, so it can be rolled out throughout the world. As we track our consumption and our improvements with our conservation and our purchase of renewables or production of renewables, we can start to see where we are and where we need to go in order to get to zero. And I think kudos to people that have made commitments, to companies that have made big commitments to say we're going to be net zero by 2040 or 2050. But where are you now, and how do you get there? And this platform is really designed to provide an entry point for any team, any business for that matter, to find out where you are and start tracking your performance and start pushing in the direction of zero. And we're not going to go from where we are today to zero overnight, and we have a means to celebrate that progress. We need to have milestones along that journey to zero, and we need to engage our stakeholders, our corporate partners, and our fans to leverage what we do to raise the visibility and make these sustainable activities mainstream and large scale. So we've really tried to simplify things, and I think this is another very important piece of Play to Zero. We know LEED certification is very complicated. Most certifications are complicated, but when we try to engage our fans, we've got to simplify the message, and we've got to focus on what I think are the 3 key issues, which is around energy, water, and waste. Obviously, sustainability is much more complex than that and much more broad. But if we can make headway in these 3 categories, I think we'll be making some great progress. So we've decided to focus on energy, water, and waste, and with the different on-ramp points and the different achievements you can achieve along your journey. When you enter the program as a player, which is really just saying, hey, we're committed to measuring, we're committed to making an improvement, so we're in the game. And then as we try to track our improvement and have a journey, a roadmap to zero, the next step is the leader level, and in this, it says water leader on the image, but it could be energy or it could be waste. So a water leader or an energy leader or waste leader, we've chosen to use 30% improvement as our metric to achieve the leader position. And then when we get to a 50% improvement, we deem that a champion. Obviously, we're still a long ways away from net zero, but it certainly is achievable, and that's our aspiration. And it's fun to see buildings like Climate Pledge Arena here in Seattle, where the new NHL Seattle Kraken play, to come out and commit to net zero right from the beginning. So it is possible, but we have people at different points along the journey. And unfortunately, I think most people are towards the left side of the screen. So we're hoping to move them from the player to the leader to the champion and ultimately the net zero champion. Unfortunately, we have unfortunate incidents that happen, and I know there's recently one that happened in Mexico. The passion and power of sport is unprecedented, and while this shakes us and disappoints us, it also tells us that there's a lot of opportunity to use that passion and that power for good, and to use sport as a platform for good to show people what we can do when we unite and do things to invest in our communities. So Nelson Mandela, I think, said it quite well years ago in 2000, and we firmly believe that sport could play a huge role in making our communities better and tackling the fight against climate change. And so I want to share a couple of examples that I'm familiar with here in the United States. Soccer in the Streets is a program in Atlanta, which is a really cool program that provides opportunities for kids to play football, soccer for us at spaces that are just wasted space at the train stations. And so part of the program is called Soccer in the Street, but it's station soccer. And so there's a nonprofit group, and Atlanta United is the Major League Soccer team in Atlanta that helps support this through the Arthur Blank Foundation. And the unused space at some of these train stations have been converted into mini pitches for kids and adults to play soccer, making it accessible, putting it in the neighborhoods. And since it's right on public transit, it's easy to move kids and adults from one location to another. So there's a great example there of a sports team engaging in the community and making a difference in people's lives. If you, hopefully we can share this presentation. If you want to watch the Vimeo video, I'll give you an in-depth and short explanation of what they're trying to do there. This is a fun one for me. This is Mariano Rivera. Mariano is a Hall of Fame pitcher from the Yankees. He's actually part of the company that I work for, Plan LED. And years ago when he was playing for the Yankees, Mariano, who's very involved in the community, helped along with Plan LED, bringing improved lighting projects to schools, making a better learning environment for the kids, a better, healthier environment for the teachers, and a way to extend his visibility and fame to bring improvements to the kids in the community. So that's another way that sports can get engaged. This is another one that I'm very familiar with from Atlanta, with the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta United. And this ties back to our recycling program. We work closely with Novelis, who's the world's largest aluminum recycler, who is a partner of ours at our stadium. And we know that as we recycle aluminum cans and bottles, there's value in that aluminum. And that value that we recycled and collected the aluminum, every time we achieved about $80,000, it was enough to fund to build a house for a family in the neighborhood not far from the stadium. So working with Habitat for Humanity and promoting our program called Recycle for Good, each year we were able to build a house in the community for some deserving family. And that ties directly to the Zero Waste Initiative. Why should we throw valuable commodities, materials into the landfill when we can recycle them and create circular economy solutions, and with this program do good in our community? So those are three good examples, I think, of what can be done to make a difference in our communities and do it in a way that also promotes sustainable practices, and hopefully gives you an idea of how we might leverage that influence of sport to both address the battle against climate change, but to make our communities stronger and healthier. So with that, I'm done with my presentation. And I would love to hear some questions and have this be more of a conversation.
Thank you very much, Scott, for this presentation. I think our audience is really very willing to hear these alternatives to how to approach the sports industry, and how can we also do our part to make it better. So I have a couple questions, and of course the audience is very, very welcome. So I just would like to start the conversation with you in terms of like, how do approach the owners of the stadiums, or is this through knowing them, or maybe some association was really willing to put this program forward? What are some ideas that our community might have in terms of like, how do we reach out? How do we find who is the person that is going to make the decision to pursue this program? Or how do we start working within the community to understand, how to make this a priority for our stadiums?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when we launched the Green Sports Alliance, some 12 years ago, we were asking ourselves that very question because we knew that was an opportunity and a responsibility. And we started from within the operations teams of these stadiums and these arenas. So it was kind of came from within. But we knew in order to be successful, we had to have support from the top. We had to have the league commissioners support it, which they did. We needed to have the owners of the teams support it, which we did. So we made the business case initially as operators why we should do this, and that goes back to the value proposition of reducing our operating expenses, improving our impression of our brand, being a good corporate citizen, making improvements in our community. But the one thing that really accelerates adoption, two things. One is support from the top, and the second is engagement with our corporate partners, because our corporate partners are spending lots of money to advertise. And within that advertisement, they have exposure rights for whatever message they want to talk about. And there's money there to activate something to talk about. So when we can connect, community efforts that make environmental sense involving our corporate partner, we now have a recipe to accelerate adoption of these things. We should be doing this whether, the owners support it or the corporate people support it or not. Unfortunately, we're all businesses and we all have to deal with those things. So support at the top is key. If we can get to owners, presidents, whatever, league officials to start these programs and adopt these programs, that's key. But I really think that interaction between doing something in the community that relates to that messaging, involving the corporate partner, then we're in a sweet spot where we can get adoption and start to elevate the conversation, because ultimately we can make our communities better and we can engage our fans to take more sustainable practices, to adopt more sustainable practices. So we really can scale this if we do it right.
Thank you so much. I think you brought a great point. Like, the sponsorship has to also be aligned with this messaging, and the narrative has to change. Those are great points. So people can get in contact not only with the owners, but also with the sponsors, and changing the messaging is so important. Those are great tips for the community in Mexico to really make this, an actionable item almost. And we are always concerned about the money. How expensive was this? We have important, numbers in terms of how much is going to take a building to become LEED. Is this an expensive program, something that people can, should worry about, that it's going to be super expensive? Is there like a blockage in terms of like, oh my God, this stadium is in really bad shape and it's going to be super expensive? How has your experience been? I know you're working in the US and maybe we will have different challenges, but has it been like super expensive to put this program forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we want to try to remove whatever barriers we have to adopt these practices. The good news is, around energy, water, and waste, and we try to keep it simple. We spend a fair amount of money on those things, right? At least in the US, we do. I'm sure you do in Mexico. So if we can get more efficient, we can reduce costs, and, if we can produce renewable energy on site and it makes sense financially, then it's easy to get people to adopt it. If we can use less water, we can reduce our costs for water. If we can waste less and reduce our waste hauling costs, then it makes business sense. Then it's really easy to do it. And so as an operator, that's what I focused on. Now, to get LEED certified and do some of these things, it can be more money, and oftentimes it is. But if we do the life cycle cost analysis of it, what does it cost to do it initially, and what is it going to cost to operate and maintain for the life of that building? You can make a good business case for it. And with the advent of LED lighting, and I would think just about everything's LED lighting today, but I know in Atlanta when we were building Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the question came up, what are we going to do for lighting? And we were right at that stage where LED was still new and you had to pay a premium for it. And if you didn't specifically ask for it, then you got the old lighting. So we could have been the last stadium to be lit with old lighting technology. And we said, no, that's a bad decision. Even though it's less expensive, we'll spend $1 million more to make sure it's all LED. And so we did that. And as a result of that and good engineering and good design, which oftentimes doesn't really cost you more money, it just means you have to be smarter and work a little harder, you can reduce your consumption. And so from an energy standpoint, Mercedes-Benz Stadium was designed to reduce their energy consumption by like 29% and their water use by 47%. So for the life of that building, they get the return of that investment. And so, yes, sometimes we have to invest more upfront, and sometimes it's just good design and you don't have to. But when you look at it from a life cycle cost, hopefully people take the long view and make those decisions. And there's more innovations coming. Renewable energy gets less expensive, and I know it's very cost competitive today. So as we push the boundaries of design, and that's what I appreciate about LEED certification, it's really moved the industry in that direction. If we put extra effort into it and do our homework and put the numbers on the page and look at the life cycle costing, some of these things are actually good investments.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I think you really nailed down what is the problem. I mean, people have to think long term and really have to think of the overall benefits of sustainability, not just like what is it going to cost at the very beginning. And I think that's very important for people to really understand that sometimes you have to make an investment, but the benefits outweigh completely, what the investment is. So my next question is a little bit putting together two of the questions that Rebecca put in the chat. Basically, how have you seen the benefits in the community, and if you have seen sponsors really wanted to make the efforts to help those efforts of the community? So it's kind of two questions in one.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I said. Your first question is how do we get this? How do we get more teams and owners to do this? And it's creating that value proposition. And corporate partners want, especially today more than ever, they want to do good. They want to be positioned in the right light, but it also has to be meaningful. We can't just say something. You have to actually do something. And these corporate partners, while they want to align with sports teams, they want to do it in a way that's meaningful. And I think there's a big opportunity to invest in the community through that station soccer initiative, through Recycle for Good, on the building of the Habitat for Humanity houses, showing people that we can work together to improve our community, because those companies pay a lot of money to advertise and they want the visibility of their brand. But what better way to do it in a way that makes their community better and shows the association with the team? So I think there's real opportunity to do just that, and not just try to make money. Obviously, they invest in it because they think they're going to get a return on their advertising investment, but they can invest in their communities. And when you do that, there's a sense of pride with their fans. There's a sense of pride with the employees, whether they're employees of the stadium or they're employees of the company who's sponsoring the team. But you can create real value there that we shouldn't underestimate.
Thank you very much. I think the value proposition is, at the end of the day, what is going to benefit us all, the sponsors and everybody. So the next question is like, what are the challenges that you have to overcome while putting together this program? What have you seen, as the biggest challenge?
Yeah, again, support from the top, making the business case, and having the time, quite honestly, to do it. And this is where a group of people such as all of you can help. by guiding people, giving them support, direction, your expertise, share it with people. Because a lot of times people, they're so busy doing what they do day to day,
Absolutely.
they don't realize there's these opportunities. So we need to keep it simple. We need to support and provide our expertise, and then show that there's a value around this, so that we can. Everyone should be doing this. And again, that's what Play to Zero is really meant to be: a simple platform to get in the game, track your performance, and obviously, around environmental initiatives, if we don't consume it, that's the best thing possible. So conservation is at the top of the list of things we want to do. But then we want to have renewable energy. We don't want to buy fossil fuel supported electricity. We want it on site if we can, or we want our utility to provide it. And then, of course, we can buy offsets as well, which is kind of the last option. But conserve, renew, and offset. And same thing with water. And on the waste side, reduce the waste, recycle the waste, and then put it into practice so that you're buying materials that are recycled. So these are simple things that everybody can do at home. They can do at work, and we want the sports industry to lead the charge and show people these things can be done, and they can be done in a way that make our communities better, and it makes good business sense at the same time.
So, Scott, have you seen innovations in terms of packaging, or um, especially I'm really focusing right now on waste, because it's such a big thing when you gather all these many people, they want to eat something, and there's a lot of packaging, it's not like a
Yes.
takeout. But have you seen innovation in materials, or like different kinds of approaches that the different stadiums have taken, especially regarding waste?
Yeah, and that's a hard one to tackle, of the energy, water, and waste to achieve, net zero, and I'll say 90% diversion rate kind of is what we define as zero waste. Um, so it's hard. It's very hard, as you
Super
mentioned. We
hard.
have all these people come. It's basically we throw a big party, it's all convenient, and they have packaging, they have serviceware, and then at the end of the game or end of the match, you look at the waste and it's just a mountain of trash. And so, yeah, that's something that, when I started working in the industry long ago, that bothered me. And so I've worked really hard at some zero waste initiatives. And in Seattle, with the Seattle Mariners, we achieved a 90% diversion rate. And then in Atlanta with Mercedes-Benz Stadium, we were about to host the men's Final Four basketball championship, and then COVID hit 2 years ago. So just 2 years ago now, when everything just stopped, we were ready to make that a zero waste event. And across the street from Mercedes-Benz Stadium is State Farm Arena, where the Atlanta Hawks play of the NBA, and they are operating at a 90% plus diversion rate. So they are a zero waste arena. So it can be done, and there are other places that have done it. It's difficult, but you do it by managing your supply chain. So you buy things, well, thinking about what you're going to do at the end of the life with that material. And then you have to have systems in place to keep those streams clean. And then you need, on the other end of that, you need a place to send it that's actually going to reuse these materials instead of sending it to the landfill. So it is very complicated, but it can be done. And I think, being smart about the supply chain. What is it? What are the inputs? What are the processes? And how do you communicate that to your employees and your fans to keep the streams clean? And then on the downstream side, where do those materials go and where do they end up? So it is complex. On one hand, it's as simple as that, 1, 2, 3, but each of those steps has a lot of complexity in it. And fans, typically, they're not coming to the football match to recycle. They're coming to have fun. And so we have to make it easy for them. We have to clean up after them. And what I found in the stadiums that I've had success to reach 90% diversion rates, we've kept it really simple. And this is kind of getting to that innovation part of your question. We had two waste streams. We had bottles and cans, and then we had everything else. And by managing the supply chain, everything else was organics. So all of the serviceware was compostable, commercially compostable, but compostable. And then with those two streams, we could more easily divert the landfill. So it was fairly simple. And I know when I'm in Mexico, I see organic waste containers and I see recycling containers. And like a lot of places, they're all commingled with all kinds of materials. So we try, but we usually fail at diverting waste and keeping those streams clean. But in a closed system like you have in a stadium or arena, you have a much better chance of doing that because you can control the inputs, you can somewhat control the processes, and then you've got to have the end of life people that can put those materials to good use. And the compostability equation is getting more interesting. PLA, polylactic acid, is used a lot in food service industry to make compostable items, and I see them in Mexico and they're all over the US, so they're out there. We've just got to keep those streams clean and get it to a commercial composter. But there's also PHA, I think it is now, another type of polymer that's compostable, that's actually compostable at home composting, and they say also somewhat compostable in the ocean environment. So PHA is really a neat innovation. And there's a company that has a new product. I think the Super Bowl just used their straws that were made of PHA that are compostable. So there is innovation there, but there's a lot of hard work around the waste side of the equation, whereas the energy and the water is a little more straightforward. But we do need expertise. We do need to keep these solutions simple, and we do need to make them make sense from a business perspective, so we can get more people to adopt them.
Thank you very much, Scott. I think keeping it simple, working with your supply chain, and really working with the staff around how to implement those things are key. And thank you very much for pointing those things, because it's very, very important that every action is simple so people can actually do it. Because if we make it so complicated, I remember being in San Francisco at a mall, and after eating something, I had to stand like 5 minutes in front of the garbage cans because I couldn't figure out where everything was supposed to go. And when there's millions of people behind you in line, that shouldn't be the case. So thank you very much for making it simple. So my next question is around education. We sometimes struggle educating not only the users, but the people directing operations and maintenance. Like, do you have a special kind of education program? Is this part of the protocol that you follow to implement Play to Zero? Like, how do you make allies within the operations of the stadiums to keep this momentum forward?
Yeah, that's a really another very important piece of the puzzle, and that's quite honestly what we try to do with the Green Sports Alliance. We're a trade organization supporting our industry, and again, the biggest benefit is the leveraging the visibility to create massive change across society. But when we focus on our industry to get people to do these things and to educate them, that's really how we started the organization, to assist operators of other venues, to give them ideas of what can be done, to show them the value in doing it, because we can learn from one another, and so we should share that. When we have successes, we should share that. So what we do at the Green Sports Alliance is we have webinars such like this, not much different than this, talking about certain topics. We have an annual summit where we get together, and this year it's June 22nd and 23rd in Minneapolis, Minnesota at US Bank Stadium. And we're very excited to be hosting it in person after 2 years of doing it virtually. And so we get together for a couple days, and we have great programs lined up about these topics. Some of them are technical operations things around innovations, and more, some of it is around social impact and making changes and being more equitable. So it's great programming. So webinars, we have playbooks, we write case studies, and we share with our industry peers what others have done. And so we also have corporate partners who are part of the Green Sports Alliance that are solution providers who can deliver these solutions for people, whether it's energy, water, waste, whatever it might be. So we really try to bring everyone together to share information, to inspire and celebrate what's being done. And so if folks are interested, to join us in Minneapolis, that would be fantastic. We'd love to get a growing network of Green Sports Alliance members in Mexico. And oftentimes, most of the time, it's people like you who are on the call who take an interest in this, who want to lead the charge to make it happen. And then once you start to do that and you get a foothold in, you start to gather who else is interested in that. And I'll say, my time in Seattle with the Mariners, the greatest value I think we got out of our sustainability program was it became part of our culture, of everyone in the organization, even our fans. And so people adopted these things and they were proud and they felt like they were part of this success of achieving zero waste. And the value of that was tremendous.
Thank you very much. So one last question for our audience and for us, and thank you very much for your time. We would like to know how the engagement and messaging that you put out to the fans. Do you tell them that you're doing the Play to Zero during the an event or something? And if you are planning to have a credential for professionals to become, not only advocates but consultants for
Sure.
Play to Zero.
Yeah, good question. We literally just launched the Play to Zero platform last month, and so we're just in the early phases of it. So I don't think there's much experience yet. The one event that we did do was the Major League Baseball All-Star Game last year in Denver, Colorado, with the Rockies, and we made that a zero water event. So they were net zero on water, and so they do conservation efforts around water at the stadium at Coors Field, and then they offset 100% of their water, working with Bonneville Environmental Foundation to restore water in the Colorado River Basin. So we got visibility from that, and that's really what we're trying to do, is get people to join the platform, to benchmark, to achieve some level of recognition, and then amplify that and have the teams talk about it along with their corporate partners who help them achieve these things. And we do need people like folks on this call to help bring people through the process. So if you're interested, we'd love to chat with you and try to see how we can adapt the Play to Zero platform at a venue or a team that you might be able to connect us with, and we'd be happy to work through that process with you.
Thank you very, very much for this amazing conversation. I think what would people do if they want to contact you? Do they go to your website? The events that you mentioned, like how do we get involved with you in everything that you're doing? But really, really, Sume is very honored to have you today, and very much I think it's going to be a great synergy for the next World Cup.
Yeah, no, we're really excited about it ourselves. So thank you for having me. And again, I apologize that I'm speaking English and not Spanish. So thank you for putting up with that. But we would love to work with you all, and get more teams and venues to be members of the Green Sports Alliance. It's not expensive. It's very inexpensive. The Play to Zero platform is very inexpensive. But we do need help. We do need experts to help bring people through the process. And to help really help achieve this opportunity of creating value, and doing it, knowing that we've got to fight this battle against climate change. So it's a huge uphill battle, but we can start somewhere, and when we start somewhere, even if it's modest, by getting them in the platform or getting them to the leader level, we're making progress. And I think when we do that, people are going to get excited about it, and the army of people are going to grow who want to start to do these things around energy, waste, and water. So, but it really, people like you are the key to the process. We've got to get started somehow, and start to look around for like-minded people. So we really appreciate this opportunity and would love to work with you. Greensportsalliance.org is our website, and there you can find information about who we are, what we do, and also find out information about our Green Sports Alliance Summit. Again, the end of June in Minneapolis, June 22nd and 23rd at US Bank Stadium. So that's another opportunity if people want to get together, and it's great networking. And if somebody wants to reach out to me too, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to chat with you and see how we can work together.
Thank you very much. And no worries, we're going to subtitle these webinars so more and more people that speak Spanish all over the world can listen to what you said. And thanks, everybody. Thank you to the Suma staff. Thank you, Rebecca. This was great. And I hope you have a great day. And we all join forces to Play to Zero.
Thank you,
I don't know,
Alicia.
Rebe, if you want to say some last words so we can close this webinar. Thank
No,
you,
just
Scott.
thank you so much for your time, Scott. We are very privileged to have you, and we are definitely going to continue being in touch. Hopefully, making happen some synergies in Mexico, as Alicia said. So thank you so much for being today with us.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Appreciate it.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Gracias,
Adios.
Alicia.
Gracias a todos. Bye.